Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Everson with the National Weather Service. Going to do the 2 o'clock briefing for Thursday, August 22nd. So I'm going to start going through the slides right now. Situation overview. Above normal temperatures is pretty much what we've had all summer. Yeah. Only good news is that dew points have been lower, which means relative humidity values are lower, and in essence, that means your heat index values aren't nearly as high as they have been. The last 2, 3, 4 weeks where we were seeing 110, 115 degree heat indices. Right now we're barely at upper 90s, maybe 100 degrees. So we'll probably stay in that for at least a few more days, and you'll see in the forecast later on we possibly warm up a little more than that. As far as rain forecast goes, most of the showers and thunderstorms, not much today. But as you go into the next couple days, you start to see more development along the coast, and then gradually kind of further inland as we go through the end of the weekend into early next week. And knock on wood, the tropics still remain really quiet. It's kind of eerie how quiet it's been. Going into the weekend, just kind of your general forecast, what we're looking at, as I mentioned, so normal temperatures, New Orleans, you're like just above 90, Baton Rouge, you're like 92, 93. So we're like a degree or two above normal for your high temperatures. As we go into next week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, probably added a couple degrees to that. So you're looking at a solid mid 90s, maybe upper 90s in a few locations. And so when you're getting that hot, even though dew points aren't quite as high, we'll probably have heat indices 103, 105, maybe 106. So when you start, at least in the general forecast, having values like that, that means you're getting pretty close to a heat advisory. So we'll see as we go into the middle of next week what it looks like in terms of heat goes. But for now, we don't have any heat advisory conditions in the forecast. Next slide, going into the 7-day rainfall forecast. As I mentioned, most of the rain is going to be on the close to the coast. If you take a look at that, those highest rain chances basically south of I-10, south of Lake Pontchartrain, and those values they're really not a whole lot. Mostly less than an inch for everyone for the next week or so, unless you're Terrebonne, Lafourche, Plaquemines, those areas, maybe St. Bernard. Everybody else is going to be not a whole lot of rainfall. So kind of looking beyond the 7 days, that kind of longer term forecast, we remain in those hot conditions with, as I mentioned, those highs in the mid, maybe upper 90s and heat indices close to heat advisory. As far as rainfall outlook goes, at least a little better chance of rain, we'll say. Rain chances maybe getting up 30, 40, 50%, and early next week, as far north as our most northern counties in Mississippi, southwest Mississippi, and then quite a bit higher further south. So at least there's a decent chance to get some rain as we kind of go into that long term. What's normal rainfall this time of year? August and September, you're like 5 to 6 inches a month. So you think 1 to 2 inches a week. That's kind of what we consider normal. Obviously, you get all that in a day, but generally, 1 to 2 inches a week is kind of the average. So kind of going into how dry it's been. I know at my house, I've got leaves falling on some of my trees, grass pretty stressed. That's right here on the North Shore. And they did, as we mentioned last week, they did expand that abnormally dry a little further to cover all of Southeast Louisiana and southern Mississippi. And we may see it expand a little bit more, maybe get some D1. To me, outside it looks like it's D1, but as we've seen time and time again, the drought monitor typically lags what's actually observed. So otherwise, yeah, it's on that drier side. Hopefully that normal to above normal rainfall will help kind of get rid of some of that. Kind of in and out the briefing for today, going the last couple of slides. Tropical weather outlook, nothing expected in the next 7 days. There's quite a bit of moisture. We saw that rainfall outlook on the 7 days, where it's quite a bit over the Gulf of Mexico. So there'll be some moisture coming in into the Gulf of Mexico early next week, so early to mid part of the week. Definitely watching it pretty closely. Even though there's nothing officially forecast to develop, this next slide, as you see, we're getting right into the peak time of hurricane season. So your chances statistically just go up and up from this point out on all the way through probably the first week of October. So don't be surprised to start seeing some potential development between now and middle of next week. Not saying something's going to develop, but at least some highlighted areas. I'd kind of expect something like that to show up just because the chances are just so high. So that's all I got for the briefing for today. And